This is the Savvy Investor radio show and podcast with Mike Kinnett and Ryan Herbert of ProStatus Financial, now celebrating 20 years helping families build successful retirements and lasting family legacies. Mike is a financial planner and estate planning attorney with a master's degree in tax and 4-time Amazon best-selling author. Ryan is a 5-star Wealth Management Award winner and top-ranked financial advisor by Forbes. Now, the Savvy Investor radio show and podcast.
It is the Savvy Investor radio show and podcast. Thanks again for staying with us. So I was talking to a buddy of mine, Jeff, and he told me, this is real life stuff. He told me that his parents' financial advisor down in the Atlanta area told them to stop working. So the story goes, his dad is retired and has created a pension. So he's taking his pension, but his stepmom is still working. And with the combined income for those two, it's kicking them into a much higher tax bracket. So Ryan, was that a good idea to tell them to stop working? And do you see that a lot? Is this a big problem that people are having? One is retired, the other one is still working, and suddenly they're in a much higher tax bracket.
So, is it good advice? Is it bad advice? I really can't answer that specifically because I don't know their situation, but I'm making the assumption that your friend's father's, the pension that he's bringing in is probably enough to cover their needs for retirement, to cover their income needs for retirement, and that his stepmom is just working because she wants something to do. She doesn't want to sit at home and something like that. Well, then in that case, if she's just working just to have something to do, just to fill their time, well, yeah, it probably makes sense for her to stop working because, you put those two incomes together, they might be in the 22% bracket versus if she stopped working, they might be in that 12% bracket. Is it good advice? Is it bad advice? I can't say for sure, but those are situations that Mike and I have come across. More often than not, what we see is people who are working and they have a pension and they just continue working because they feel like the longer that they're working, the more money and pension that they're getting. But oftentimes when we're sitting down with some of our listeners that are federal workers where they have those really nice pensions and they have those TSPs, oftentimes they've been with the government so long that they've pretty much maxed out on their pension and they continue to work because they think the more years of service that I have, the larger my pension will be. But quite often, Mike and myself, and we sit down and we're going through their income and retirement. We're talking about here's what your Social Security is. Here's how much your pension's going to be. If you look at everything now, you can retire right now with what you have. But the answer normally is, well, if I work another year, I'll have 27 years. And then, my high three goes up a little bit more. But then the answer to that most often is, well, you're basically working for less than minimum wage because all you're doing is you're increasing your pension by $20 a month. You don't need the income. You don't have to keep working. You don't have to keep saving money for retirement. You're working because you think that the longer I work, the more I work, the more my pension is going to be. But at the end of the day, you're going to get $20 more a month. Does that make sense for you?
What's their reaction? What's their reaction when you lay this out, when you do the numbers, when you calculate things, and they see exactly what you just said?
It's shock because a lot of times, it's not something that they've ever thought about because, well, I'm not working for minimum wage because I'm making, $175,000 a year. And I said, okay, but when you retire, you're going to have enough income coming in. You have, $1 million, $1.5 million or X amount of money inside of your TSP. So what are you working for? You're not working for the income because you don't need the income. You're not working to put more money in your 401k because you have enough money from your pensions and Social Security. The only thing in your mind from your own words is I'm working because I want my pension to keep growing. Well, is it worth working 40 hours a week, 52 weeks a year or whatever it is? I know it's less because the government gets all kinds of days off, but is it worth working all those hours just to increase your pension by $20 a month? Most times like, no. Well, when you put it in that way, the most simplest of terms, yeah, it doesn't make sense that I'm working. And 9 times out of 10, they go into the work the very next week and they put in their notice saying, hey, I'm going to retire and I'm going to walk away. So it's shock, it's relief, but it's one of those unique situations that nobody ever really thinks about. Just like nobody ever really thinks about taxes in retirement. You know, your friend's parents' financial advisor gave them that tax advice. That in and of itself is so unique because 99% of the financial advisors that are out there, 99% of the financial advisors that Mike and myself meet when we go to these networking things, none of them ever really talk with their clients about taxes. None of them,
because they can't.
Most of them, they choose not to, but a good majority of them can't, because if you work with, Merrill Lynch, you work with Ed Jones, you work with Morgan Stanley or Bank of America or Wells Fargo or any of those companies, you get those monthly statements from them or quarterly statements, and you go all the way to those back pages where all those disclosures are. In one of those pages says, talk to a tax professional about tax advice. We can't.
But that's where you got to break out the microscope to see
all that fine print where it has all, past performances and guarantee future results and all that stuff. But that is the importance of working with an advisor who thinks about the tax consequences of what you're doing. That's the reason that tells me that your friend's parents' financial advisor was giving them good advice, because he's thinking about the tax consequences. He's saying, if we ignore the assets altogether, because that's what my goal is to gather as many assets under management and charge a fee, because that's how advisors make a living. Mm-hmm. He's saying, if we ignore that altogether, I'm giving you advice on something that does not make me money. You should stop working because it's costing you too much money in taxes. I would venture to say that that's probably in their best interest. And if you want to have those types of conversations with your financial advisor, if you're not getting that tax advice from your financial advisor, if your financial advisor is not advising you on, here's truly the best time for you to retire based on your pension, based on these numbers, I encourage you to visit us on the website at thesavvyinvestorradio.com. That's thesavvyinvestorradio.com. You can click on that tax analysis button that we have on the website. It allows you to schedule your appointment right online with Mike, myself, and our team. We will sit down together and put together your very own complimentary retirement plan that talks about the fees you're paying, that talks about the investments, talks about taxes, how we can help avoid losing 20 to 30% on your money right off the top to taxes. Without having a plan, that is Uncle Sam's plan for you.
Ryan, you mentioned 20 to 30% in taxes if we don't do anything. That's a huge tax consequence. We're always focused about the market losing 20 to 30% on the market. But what you're saying, if it's true, if we don't do anything, forget about the market. If we don't do anything, we're going to lose 20 to 30% just on taxes. Yeah, that's insane.
It is insane. But if you think about all these years, you've been encouraged to put money away in your retirement plan. Save for retirement, save for retirement, save for retirement. Oh, by the way, when you put money in your 401k, it's money that goes in pre-tax, and it helps reduce the amount of taxes that you're paying now. But you've been putting that money away pre-tax. The government has a record of how much you've been putting away. Every single year, the accounts go up, they go down with the market. All the earnings that you have in there, all the money that you have inside of these retirement plans, whether they're IRAs or 403Bs or TSPs or 401ks, it's all pre-tax money. The moment you start taking that money out, the government wants their share. They've let you put that money away for years and avoid paying tax on it for years. Now they want their share. Well, most people, when they start to take that money out, you're trying to maintain that same standard of living that you've had going into retirement, prior to retirement. That's the way that Mike and I love doing our financial plans, is whatever you're spending a month right now, whatever your lifestyle you're having while you're working, that's the number you should be shooting for in retirement. So if you're making $170,000 a year and you're spending, for better or worse, around $170,000 a year, just because now you're retired, well, if you need to bring in $170,000 worth of income, that tax bracket is the exact same. There is this misconception that taxes are going to go down in retirement. While for some people that may be the case, for most people it's not the case. So you're taking money out of these 401k plans, paying tax on it. In Maryland, you're going to pay 7% taxes. Most people are going to pay somewhere between 20 to 25% on the Fed. So at a bare minimum, right off the top, you're losing 30% taxes. If you have $1 million in your 401k, the government owns $300,000 of that $1 million bucks. just in taxes alone. That's why it's so important to have that tax plan in place. Let's sit down and talk about Roth conversion. Let's sit down and talk about your income in retirement so that way we can make it as tax efficient as possible in retirement. And tax planning that Mike and I talk about on the radio is not something that happens overnight. It's not something that's easy to do. It can be a very painful process because we are going to start paying taxes now to help save you money in the future. But in the long run, 9 times out of 10, the savings that we're seeing for our clients is north of $2 million over your lifetime by having a tax plan in place. $2 million in taxes.
And Ryan, when you say pay taxes on this now with these Roth conversions, now is a great time to do that. Probably, I don't want to speak out of school here, but probably the best in our lifetimes because, what is it? Is it the Trump tax cuts that expire at the end of 2025? Yep.
The Trump tax cuts expire at the end of 2025. It certainly is the lowest taxes in my lifetime. We're at the lowest taxes we've seen since the Reagan years. And I think he ended in 84. That's when I was born. So, that's the lowest that we've seen, but these are the lowest tax rates we've seen. Mike and I have been talking about Roth conversion since 2018 when this tax code went into effect. All we know right now is the tax rates stop January 1, 2026. They go back to where they were, the Bush and Obama tax levels, unless something is done. But now is the time to take action. Let's start doing Roth conversions on your money, get as much converted over now as we can over the next 2 years, and then continue into the next couple of years because we are going to pay taxes now to help save you money in the future. And when you click on that tax analysis button on our website at thesavvyinvestorradio.com. That's thesavvyinvestorradio.com. You'll sit down with Mike, myself, and our team here at ProStatus, and we will show you your very own Roth conversion analysis that shows you by doing nothing, you're going to lose 20 to 30% right off the top. But by having a proper tax plan in place, here's what your income can look like in retirement. Here's how much money we can save you in taxes and quite possibly get you down to that 0% tax bracket.
That tax analysis button, by the way, as Ryan mentioned, that will instantly take you to their Calendly page, which is a web-based calendar, and you can pick a time that works best for you on their calendar and make that happen, make that conversation happen again. That's thesavvyinvestorradio.com, thesavvyinvestorradio.com. When you talk about Uncle Sam going after our taxes, I remember, I think it was you or Mike that said it. It's like he looks at a big, juicy steak. He looks at our taxes like a big, juicy steak. So don't let that happen. And they are here to help you. Again, thanks for listening to the Savvy Investor radio show and podcast. Also on YouTube. Ryan, thanks again for your time, man. We really do appreciate you, Mike, Lawrence, Catherine, the entire team at ProStatus and here on the Savvy Investor radio show and podcast. But as always, you get the final word, man. You get us out of here.
This is Ryan Herbert. Thank you for listening to the Savvy Investor radio show and podcast. And we will see you, the Savvy Investor, next week.
Advisory services offered through ProStatus Financial Advisors Group, a registered investment advisor. Insurance licensed in Maryland. ProStatus Financial Advisors Group, LLC is not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if ProStatus Financial Advisors Group is licensed in your state, please call 410-863-1040. ProStatus Group, LLC is not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency and does not provide legal or tax advice. Annuity guarantees rely solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing insurance company. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through representatives of ProStatus Financial Advisors Group.